Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Nicholas, and I'm back. It's been kind of a long time, but that's because I was busy living. So I have my list here today. Let me rip it out of my book. I have my list of things that we're gonna talk about today, and I'm just gonna start from the top. So the first thing that I wanna address is the weather. It's getting cold here in Los Angeles. Like, it's getting cold. Like, I have to like wear a jacket when I go outside, and in the morning it's like freezing. Like, I'm like shivering. Like, honestly, I could wear gloves. And on my bike today, I was biking home from Target, and something was just up. Like, I almost got into an accident, and it was because this person just came at a stop sign so fast. I thought they weren't gonna stop. So I hit my brakes really fast, but I wasn't going that fast, but I hit the brakes so fast and so hard that I actually kind of fell off the bike a little bit. And it was just really uncomfortable. I was cold, I was anxious, I was overwhelmed. And it's all because when I woke up, the sun wasn't clear in the sky, and that was really fucking me up. But related to the weather, obviously when it gets cold, you have to moisturize more. And so I wanted to talk about body oil. I feel like body oil doesn't get enough play. Like, people don't talk about it enough. It's not like a super popular product. Everybody doesn't use it. But I love body oil. So I want to show you guys two of my favorites today. They're both relatively inexpensive. And the reason why I got thinking about this was because the Sephora sale is going on. So I'm not like a normal Sephora shopper, but I figured since it's a Sephora sale, let me look and see if there's anything on there that maybe I might want to buy because it will be on sale. So maybe there's a cologne that I want that will be on sale, and maybe there's a body oil that I want that will be on sale. And so I went and I looked through all the colognes, nothing really talked to me. And then I went to look at the body oils, and the body oils were all quite expensive. And again, just like nothing to write home about. Like, the things that I have, I did not buy on sale, and they're still less than anything that Sephora has. So the first one I want to tell you about is the Trader Joe's Lemon Coconut Body Oil with almond and jojoba oil. And this is gentle, light, and aromatic, and it moisturizes the skin without being greasy. That's what the box or the bottle says, and that is absolutely true. It's made in, I guess, Sri Lanka. It smells lemony, like it smells like lemon grove, like lemon verbena. Lemon verbena. Don't like the way that word sounds. Verbena, ew. But it has coconut oil, olive oil, almond oil, jojoba oil, and lemongrass oil, and that's it. And it's great. I think it was like maybe less than $10 when I bought it. I still have quite a bit, even though, as you know, I'm a pretty big boy, and it's still like, I'm still not out, and I use it basically every single day. And if I'm not using that, I'll use this oil, which is the vegan collagen oil by Pacifica, and it has sunflower, avocado, and borage. This has sunflower oil, avocado oil, vitamin E, flaxseed, jojoba. It does have some scent in it. The scent is like a jasmine, vegan collagen, rosehip oil, aloe, same thing, and it smells so good. Here, I'll put it on someone so you can see. Oh my god, I got oil on my thing. But that's what it looks like, and this one is a little bit heavier than the Trader Joe's one, and they are scented, but I don't know, I like the scent. I like the scent a lot. So yeah, try out a body oil if you never had one before. It's like you take a shower and then you put on lotion and then you put on the body oil, and your skin is just so hydrated and soft. And especially if you're like me and you bike or you spend a lot of time outside, then like just having both, it helps you to stay moisturized, so you're not literally so dry, cracking, chafing, just nasty. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is Birkenstocks. So I recently got a pair of Birkenstock clogs. These are the Super Birky, and I love them. I just cleaned them today, so they're gleaming, except for the bottom. The bottom is dirt from the trenches, not the palm trees. Palm trees, trenches. And I love these. They fit super well. They run kind of big, so I had to size, well, no, they run kind of small. but the woman told me that they ran big. So I normally wear like an 11, 11 and a half. The woman told me, oh, they run big. Make sure you go into the store and try them on. Don't order them online because you might want to get a size down. I tried the size down. The size down was way too small. So I sized up, and this is perfect, especially if you're wearing them with like a thick, comfy sock. The one size up is actually really good. And I love these. I love the support that they have. The sole inside of the Birkenstock is so supported. They did take a little minute to break in, but I love them. And I've been meaning to get a slide-on shoe since my Ozboss sandals strap had broken and I wasn't able to fix it. So yeah, I love those. And I actually saw them for the first time at the Nilla Frianya concert. There was a guy there wearing them. So I walked up to him, I was like, hey, where are your shoes from? He was like, oh, they're from Birkenstock. And when I told you guys, I went the next day to Sherman Oaks to go buy some. And shout out to the Sherman Oaks Birkenstock. They're really nice there. Okay, the next topic I have is fragility. So this is something that I've really been thinking about this year specifically. In 2023, a lot of like, maybe not 2023. Well, yeah, 2023 too. 2022 and 2023, just different things happened to me that showed me how fragile and delicate like I am, humans are. Like, when I was younger, people would always say like, oh, when you're young, you think you're invincible. And I never really understood what that meant until I got older. People always say like 23 is like a really hard year. I would say right around the time that I turned 23, it started to really click in my mind that it's like, not only am I not invincible, but I'm actually quite accident prone. Like I just said, I crashed out on my bike this morning. Good thing I was wearing my fucking helmet. Like my bike fell, I almost like, it was a whole thing. I've been in bike accidents, I've been in car accidents, I've been in skateboarding accidents. I've caught illnesses, like I've had injuries. Like I'm fragile. Like my mind is resilient in the spectrum of, I think it's pretty resilient in the spectrum of people, but still it's fragile. Like it's something that can be damaged. Like it can be damaged, it can be healed, but your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, everything about you and what makes you up is malleable to a certain extent. And so you have to be careful with it. Like you have to be careful with the things you do, with the things you read, with the things that you watch, with the places you go, with the things that you try. Like you just have to exercise some discernment and care on your own behalf because you're quite fragile. And I was thinking about that a lot this week. And right under that, I have self-image. So as you guys know, I've been doing Pilates pretty much 5 times a week for the past year. It'll be a year in December that I've been doing this. And it's had a lot of interesting impacts on my mind. The combination of, I also stopped drinking this year, which I've also been having feelings about. I don't know if I want to get into it in this video. Maybe I'll get into it in the next video since like the holidays are coming up and that means it's going to be like parties and family time and everything like that. I don't know what my alcohol situation is going to be, but the Pilates, right? So I started doing Pilates 5 to 6 times a week. And then I also stopped drinking. And so obviously drinking has an impact on your mental health and like the way you see yourself and the way you perceive the world, and that's all one thing. And then Pilates or any type of like exercise that you're doing constantly is going to start to shape your body. It's going to change the way that it looks. So like whether you're running every single day, you'll get a runner's body. If you swim every single day, you'll get a swimmer's body. If you go outside and practice football for 2 hours a day, every single day, you'll look like a football player, right? Like different parts of your body will build up and slim down because of your, what you're doing and everything like that. And I know that my body has been changing because other people have been telling me that. Other people have been telling me, oh, Nick, you look good. Or other people have been telling me, oh, Nick, you look different. Or, this thing or that thing that people say. And I could kind of see it. Like I could kind of see it in my arms. I could kind of see it in my shoulders. I could kind of see it in my legs. Like you could kind of see the changes. But this past weekend, it felt like night and day in a way. I felt like I was seeing myself in a whole new light. And then I got a new driver's license and I saw the picture and I felt like, oh, I look really different than I did a year ago. Like, I feel like now I feel like I see the difference. And I don't know how I feel about it. I think that I look like a different person. I know I don't, logically, in reality, I know that I still just look like me. I just look like fitter, toner, thinner, like, you know, more lanky kind of looking. Like, I know that that's just what I look like, but I obviously still look like the same person. I'm not like unrecognizable, but like me looking at my own image, I feel like it looks very different than it did a year ago. And when you're working out a lot, you kind of think like, oh, that's aspirational, that's ideal. But it just sort of comes with new feelings about how you relate to yourself. And that goes into the next thing, which is dieting. So for the past couple of months, I've been working with a nutritionist, not specifically on dieting or specifically on trying to lose weight, but because I have been more vigilant, vigilant, because I have been monitoring what I'm eating, because I'm working with a dietitian and she instructs me on, you know, eat this, not that, eat at this time, eat at this time, eat at this time. Like, she gives me information on actually how to do it. I think that's also playing into the change, because now that's been going on for a couple of months. And I don't have a lot to say about dieting other than that more people should have a nutritionist, because the way that I'm eating now is not that much different than the way that I was eating before, but it has an applied framework to it. It has like goals and metrics around it. And I think like as I'm getting older, I'm becoming a person who's more interested in, oh, there's a fly. Don't leave your windows open. I'm becoming more interested in data and metrics as they apply to my life. I used to be very repulsed by grades in school, repulsed by times at a swim meet, repulsed by just any sort of data that would be applied to me to give me some sort of quality ranking or rating. That used to really, really bother me because those things felt in a lot of ways out of my control. But now I feel differently about them. I think mainly because the main metrics that apply to my life are like, how much money do I have? How much do I weigh? And that's really it. Those are like the main two metrics in my life. And like, you know, things around that, like things that are adjacent and in concentric circles expanding out from that, but they feel much more relevant and important to my life and to my health. And my health is really, really important to me because it goes back to that fragility thing. If you don't take care of yourself, bad things will happen to you. Like, it's not like, obviously fate and destiny are a part of everything. So maybe you could do all of the good things. You could eat healthfully, you could work out every day, you could not drink, you could not do drugs, you could wear sunscreen, but also still stretch and get your wildlife time. And, you know, you could do everything right and still, you know, get hit by a bus or something. Like, bad things can still happen to you, but like your health, if you neglect it, like your body will give up on you. Like, you're fragile, like watch the Substance. Like, if you betray you, you will betray you. That's how it's gonna go. And all of those feelings are kind of wrapped up in my self-image changing. I think it's for the better. I feel like it's for the better, but I haven't really had this profound of a shift in a long time. So the next thing that I want to talk about is a book that I read, which is called The Stranger by Albert Camus. Camus. He's a French writer. And I decided to read this book because I like to read, or I've been trying to read more classics. So I read like Pride and Prejudice, which is obviously older, like I guess Victorian 18th century classic. Albert Camus' The Stranger would be considered a contemporary classic. I believe that it was published in the 1950s. The 50s? No, maybe it's published in the 70s. It's a contemporary classic though. They have it in the classic section at Barnes & Noble. And it's basically the story of this guy who lives in Algeria. He's a French guy. He lives in Algeria during the time of the occupation. One day he's got a girlfriend, he's got some friends. They go to the beach and he ends up killing a man. He goes on trial and he's sentenced to death. And I didn't really know much about this book before I read it, other than that it was a classic, and I had seen some friends reading it before, like many years ago. I knew someone who read it, and I think I didn't get it, or maybe it just wasn't for me. Like, while I was reading it, I was like, this is kind of silly. Like, I don't really understand what's being communicated to me here. I don't really understand this character and the way that he thinks. Some parts of it like are resonating and I'm thinking are interesting, but other parts of it I didn't really understand what was pushing the story along. Thankfully it was short, which I was definitely happy about. But it just didn't sing to me. I did get through it quite quickly, but it was so bleak. And felt without purpose. And then after, when I was researching it, I read like, okay, it's a philosophical novel. It's about the writer's philosophy or philosophical belief that ultimately life is meaningless, and the things you believe in, the relationships that you have, and the experiences you go through kind of all amount to nothing. So they might as well be extreme in a way, like, or they can be extreme, or they can be dark, or they can be painful, but like ultimately it doesn't matter. Time is flat, so as you experience the present, you experience the past. As you experience the present, you also experience the future. The future is as meaningless as the present is as meaningless as the past, and moments are only as interrelated to each other as they are directly sequential. Which is like all good and interesting, but like I don't think that that's true. Like, I don't think life is meaningless. I don't think time can feel flat, but I don't think time is flat. And I don't think that actions in the past do not relate to the future. And I don't think that people should be like hedonistic, thrill-seeking, or so careless or passé like about the meaning of life, such that they should destroy their own lives for no reason, because that's ultimately what the main character does. He says like, why should I have ambition when life is meaningless? He commits a murder. He commits a murder he doesn't have to commit against a person who hasn't really done anything to him, to no end. And then he goes to prison, and then he is well, I guess he's not executed, but he's like about to be executed in the book. So it wasn't really for me. I'm not super big into philosophy. Like, growing up, I feel like I kind of missed that wave. Like, you know, some people get super into coding, some people get super into music, some people get super into philosophy. Like, I guess I shouldn't say those are boy activities. They're not just for boys, but like, you know, with like weirdo boys in high school, like they all kind of have their thing. And like I was into music. That was my thing. Other people got into like computers and technology. Other people got into like philosophy. Like other people got into like math or whatever the hell. And so I never got deep into philosophy. And then when I went to school, when I went to university, we did have to read some philosophy, but my program was a business program. It wasn't like a true like liberal arts program. So we read different stuff, but like not that widely, and it didn't build upon itself. Like, it's not like I was reading, you know, Aristotle and Socrates and whoever in year one, and then I was supposed to be reading levels 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, all the way to the end. It wasn't like that. It was like, you just have to do those basics, and then you need to go focus on how to get the bag, because I went to business school. So my ideas of philosophy are kind of just shaped loosely by like different things that I've read in an unstructured way, different movies that I've seen, and then podcasts that I've listened to. I do really like the Overthink podcast, which is which are like lectures or philosophical discussions by two different philosophy professors. And I think that's quite interesting. But the whole idea of philosophy as a domain of study kind of goes against my personal philosophy of life, which is that it's like, here for a good time, not a long time, like make memories, live your best life, it's a party in the USA. Like that's really my philosophy. Like, so it's like, your life is not meaningless. Like, it has meaning. You have to make the meaning, but like it does have the possibility of making meaning. Like, you can become who you want to become. You can live the dream that you want to live, or at the very least you can try. And in that trying, you can satisfy yourself. And if you become satisfied, then you like have lived a good life. And that kind of goes against I guess, religious ideology, because in most religions, whether it's, no, I shouldn't say most religions, but in the religions that I'm familiar with, like suffering, deprivation are kind of a part of the deal with life. And like maybe they are, but in trying to become satisfied, like the goal of life is to try to become satisfied. And the methods of satisfaction are plentiful, and like maybe it's like a nurture versus nature thing of the way that we achieve them. And like there is some nuance around like what is right and what is wrong in the way that we try to achieve satisfaction. Like ideally the way that we want to satisfy ourselves will also be in line with like the highest good of our health and safety, the advancement of society, equality, justice, etc., etc., etc. But for some people, they're not. So we still have to have a society that exists outside. We have to have a society and a system of laws, education, and just general like civil society that exists outside of like hedonistic pleasure, because what brings pleasure to another person can literally bring pain to another person. And like all of those things come together to like form my personal philosophy. And so reading books like The Stranger, where the philosophy is like absurdism and meaninglessness and cavalierness towards life and a lack of feeling and emotion and understanding, such to the point that it becomes self-destructive, like it just doesn't resonate with me. And maybe it would have hit more when I was younger. I think most people read this book when they're younger than I am. Like people read it in their freshman year of college, or they read it in their senior year of high school or something like that. And so when you're feeling a little bit more like angsty and aimless and not knowing where you're going and not knowing what the meaning of life is, like you haven't lost loved ones, you haven't had near-death experiences, you haven't felt betrayed, you haven't felt successful, you haven't felt optimistic, you haven't had really big goals that you've achieved and stuff like that, so you don't really know all that life has to offer. But like that, The Stranger feels like it's written from the perspective of someone who doesn't even know what life could offer them, and that's why they believe that it's meaningless. And yeah, so it was just okay. My philosophy, as I said, is live your best life, love your family, it's a party in the USA. And that takes me to my next topic, which is the election. So it is actually November 5th today. I'm making this video in the afternoon. So by tomorrow morning, we're gonna like know who the next president of the United States is gonna be. And either it's gonna be Kamala Harris or it's gonna be Donald Trump. That is so interesting to me that those are the two options, because in 2020, or well, in 2016, Donald Trump was like the surprise winner, right? Like he lost the popular vote in America, but he still became the president. So it was like, even though, yes, a lot of people supported him, and in different parts of the country, he was always number one. Like it was, in the grand scheme of things, it was like, oh dang, like, whoa, didn't expect that. Then in 2020, he ran against Joe Biden and he lost. And Joe Biden was popular because of a million different reasons: the pandemic, the economy, just, you know, Trump's antics, like, you know, just disillusionment and resentment and, you know, all of this stuff. Joe Biden became the president, and Kamala Harris, who also ran for president and was at first a very popular candidate, and then as the race went on, became very unpopular. I mean, she didn't, if I'm not mistaken, she's from California, and she dropped out before California. Now, maybe she, at that time, already knew that she was gonna get that VP offer from the Biden campaign and was just like, fuck it, like, let's just call it a day. But, you know, she just didn't do very well in the primary. But then she ended up becoming the vice president, and I can't really say if she's a popular or unpopular vice president, because the vice president is just not really that meaningful in public life. She's definitely been way more visible as a vice president than any other vice presidents have been, and at least in my lifetime, way more visible than, well, maybe she's not as, maybe she's on equal par of Dick Cheney. I know Dick Cheney was, well, he was the vice president, right? I can't look because my phone is right there, but I think Dick Cheney was the vice president to George W. Bush. But then, like, Joe Biden during the Barack Obama years was never this visible, and then Pence was never this visible, but Kamala is really, really out there. And I think we can all see with hindsight, and what many of us have with foresight, honestly, is that the reason why she's so visible is because Joe Biden is not all the way there. If we could say it that way. Like, he's not of completely sound mind. And so this past administration, this past 4 years has been a team effort, truly, by him, Kamala, their whole cabinet, their whole people. You know, it's not just been like one guy really. You know, Joe Biden has not been the main guy running the show. It's been a team effort. We'll just put it like that. So she's been very visible to people, and now she's running for president. She was the switch candidate. Originally, Joe Biden was running. He was running until the end of July. Then after he had that really, really horrible debate where he basically displayed in a long form way little bits of the senileness that everybody had been witnessing since even before he was elected. I mean, I think in 2020 he was a lot better, but I mean, he's an old man. He's 80 years old, if not more than 80 years old. So his mental and physical health just is declining because we're humans and we're fragile. Go back to the top of the list. We're humans, we're fragile, we don't last forever. And so, you know, he fell off bad, but luckily his good sister Kamala was there to fill in for him. And so since she's been the official candidate, she's been very popular. She's been polling well, she's been raising a lot of money. So it's kind of neck and neck. And it's crazy that it's neck and neck. Why is Donald Trump so popular with Republicans? What has he really done for them? You know, that's a whole other... I mean, we could be talking for hours about that. People are going to be doing PhDs on that, like probably for the next 150 years, about how he was able to come to power, what led to that, his following, everything like that is crazy. But them two are the options basically this year, and what's it going to be. And so we'll see tomorrow. I voted for Kamala Harris. I think she will win. I think. And I don't even think that because she's particularly such a strong candidate. I think that she's like strong enough. She's definitely the best that the Democratic Party has to offer. But I think her winning will be more of a testament to the fact that the second party, the Republican Party, could not put a good candidate forward. Donald Trump is a popular candidate. He's popular with people. He's not a good presidential candidate. And he wasn't a good presidential candidate in 2016 when he ran the first time. Hillary Clinton, it's literally like the reverse. Hillary Clinton was the same way. She was extremely popular amongst people. She won that popular vote, but she wasn't a good presidential candidate, if that makes sense. Like, she wasn't a good presidential candidate. And so she lost in key areas. You could go watch another video of her campaign. You could go watch, in hindsight, if you go watch those debates, which I've watched them in the past few years, like if you go back and watch them, the writing was kind of on the wall of why she was not able to win that election. Even in those three debates, or maybe they did two debates. They did two debates in the vice president, they did three debates. Even if you go back and watch those debates, you can see what was happening. It was just hard to see in real time. And that's why I say now, even though I voted for Kamala Harris, I think she's a strong candidate. I don't think that Donald Trump is nearly as strong of a candidate as he was in 2016. I do think that people see his age as a huge problem. I don't think people see any of his policy platforms really as that exciting anymore, especially because a lot of the really, really big checks that he tried to write in 2016, he didn't cash in his first term. But I can't say with like a strong confidence that he couldn't win, because I live in California. I live in a bubble. I live in such a bubble. And so I couldn't really say what's going to happen, because I'm not in Pennsylvania. I'm not in Florida. I'm not in Michigan. I'm not in, swing states. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, California's going to go blue. That's kind of not really something that that's up in the air at this point. So like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But we're gonna find out. We will find out. The future is not, well, the future is a mystery. The present holds the question, the future holds the answer. When we get there, we'll have it. But I did just want to talk briefly about the future of America and like the way that I see it. So obviously this is one election. There'll be another election in 4 years, probably Kamala Harris. Even if she doesn't win this time, she'll probably run again if she doesn't win. She's still very young. Who knows what's going to happen with the Democratic Party, or not Democratic, who knows what will happen with the Republican Party. But there's a few things that I'm really interested in to see as far as the future of America. So the first one is welfare. I listened to a podcast this week by the New Books Network. I think it was the Anthropology Books podcast by the New Books Network. And it was of a woman who had done a PhD study on welfare, the state of welfare. And I think that with the advent of AI, and I know people always say, every couple of years people say this, but I think we're really getting there. With what I have seen going to different conferences and workshops over the past year, we're really getting there where a lot of simple, we'll say jobs whose main objectives and tasks can be codified to a significant extent, codified as in put into computer code and given to a robot or to an AI to do. I think we're gonna reach that turning point very soon. I recently took a ride in a Waymo, and while Waymos are not perfect, it was like fine. It was fine. I got in, I called the car, it came, it took a little while, it took 7 minutes. The car came, I got in, it knew who I was, it picked me up, it took me where I go. It had one issue, which was it recognized a fire truck, so it tried to pull over. So it pulled over, but the fire truck was pulled over. So then we started to hold up traffic. I, in my robot car, started to hold up traffic because the car wouldn't go. And it stayed there for probably about 30 seconds as it ran whatever data, science, whatever it was doing to figure out that, oh, the fire truck is not moving, I can move. But then it moved, then it dropped me off at home, and I was fine, I was done. And so that I go to welfare to say that like, there's going to be mass unemployment. Like there just will be. There's going to be mass unemployment. How many Uber drivers are there? How many drivers are there, period? Whether it's truck drivers, whether it's valet drivers, whether it's shuttle bus drivers at the airport, or drivers that drive cars around, you know, drive the employee cars, shuttles around Universal Studios to go on the tour. Like how many physical drivers there are? What if all of those people were unemployed? Where are they gonna go? What are they gonna do? Well, the first thing that they're gonna do is probably file for unemployment, which is a form of welfare. And that's pretty limited. Like, I think the maximum amount that somebody can be on unemployment in their lifetime, according to this podcast, was 5 years. So 60 months, commutative, and then there's limits as far as how long you can be on it, like at a given time, depending on what state you're in. That's pretty limited. And the amount of money you can get is pretty low. So what happens when it's not just drivers, but let's say that it's also cooks. It's not just drivers, but it's also doormen. It's not just drivers, but it's also delivery guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just more and more as AI becomes more advanced, we have to deal with the reality of more and more unemployed people. So either there has to be like a federal jobs guarantee that says like, if you cannot find a job, the government will give you a job. You may not be able to choose what it's gonna be. It might be hard, it might be low paid, or maybe it will be paid whatever is fair for that region or that work. But like welfare has to expand beyond either as a society, we have to change to be okay with just giving people money, like some sort of like techno-communism kind of thing, or the welfare state has to expand beyond just giving people money, and it has to give people something to do as well. Otherwise, there's just gonna be like a lot of unemployed people kind of with nothing to do. Yeah, like the AI revolution mixed with the population issue of like population replacement, like I think that's a really big issue. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is culture. So I have 2 points here. I have culture and then I have imported ideologies. And they kind of go together because as America's population or replacement rate is going down, immigration is going up. And so the fabric and the makeup of the country is obviously changing because you have different people groups from all over the world that are coming here and, you know, just like mixing. And this sort of, how can I say this? The people that choose American culture to be the elite and to be the top and to be what they want to push forward often tend to be like fascist, racist, Republican, make America great again type of people. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like, in order to be one nation, obviously, well, no, because we are one nation, we have to have one dominant culture. Because cultures will fall into a pyramid naturally by their popularity, influence, financial backing, yada, 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 right? Culture is created, subcultures are created, and they naturally fall into a hierarchy. What the issue that we have in America is now is that the culture is not being really managed in any meaningful way. Does that make sense? So like, because the only options are MAGA fascism or we are the world's globalism, that means that actually, in reality, there's a vacuum of nothingness. And how long can the vacuum of nothingness persist before, instead of being two major subcultures beneath the nothingness, how long will it be before, instead of having those two, you have like 4, and then you have like 5, I don't know, like you have multiple really strong subgroups of cultures that cannot really cooperate or coexist? Like, how long does that persist for? How can that keep going? And how can that keep going in the time when we're going to need more universal welfare programs due to the realities of a low population replacement rate, a high amount of unemployment, and a growing wealth disparity? We know that in the past, the reason why America doesn't have some universal programs that other countries have, for example, universal health care, is because the whites, I hate to say it so crudely, but the whites didn't want to share with the blacks. If we have universal health care, that means that we have to provide free health care for black people. This is post-Civil War, so really those are like the main 2 groups. It's whites, blacks, Native Americans, and Asians in the West Coast, but like a smaller population. This is right after World War II. So they're like, we don't want to provide those services for them, so we're not going to. And even welfare, going back to this podcast I listened to, welfare started to become more strict and more regulated in the 90s when, after basically 50 years after World War II had ended, the population group, which was basically white women that were taking up most of the welfare resources, had graduated or moved on from it and were not on it, and it was primarily serving minority populations. That's when the idea of a welfare queen came to exist. That's when they started to put federal and state limits on how long you could be on welfare, what you had to do to get it, you have to prove that you have it, etc., etc., etc. So we need a strong universalist, or like we need strong culture managers for the country to help, emphasize and create a feeling that everybody who is in America is American. Everybody who is in America is American. And by being in America, you have these certain rights and you have these certain responsibilities. And being in America, or what America is trying to do, is aspire to these certain ideals. And the way that we can aspire to those certain ideals is A, by truth, justice, and reconciliation for harms done in the past, and B, honest interrogation of ourselves and our society and how we can create a more equitable, diverse, equitable, and inclusive and just future for everyone. And we can do that by focusing on creating universal programs that uplift the quality of life for everyone. Uplift the quality of the water, of housing, of education, of transportation, just everything that every single person has to deal with. We are going to actually try to work to solve those problems, and we're going to do it to the benefit of all, for the reasons that, like, we're doing this because the American ideal is X and Y and Z. Like, that cultural gap is so important and it needs to be filled. Otherwise, like, it's gonna make the work that needs to be done in the future, impossible from a cultural standpoint. And if you've studied or looked into any type of like management psychology, organizational behavior, one of the biggest reasons why a project can fail, why a technology can fail, why a program can fail, even if it's perfect, it's necessary, it's supposed to solve the problem, you have all the tools and all the resources, is if the employees or the members of the community or other organization or whatever will simply not adopt the new behavior or the new technology because culturally it doesn't fit, like, in their framework of what they think they should be doing. Okay. All right, so that's culture. And that also kind of goes into leadership, like who will lead the cultural change needed to institute the universalized programs that are needed because of, and the last one I have here is AI. Because AI is going to change everything, who is going to be able to fill that vacuum that gets created? Because it won't just, an unemployed person is not just an unemployed person. They're an unemployed parent, they're an unemployed sibling, they're an unemployed child, they're an unemployed man, they're an unemployed woman, they're an unemployed other. Like, they take up space and contribute to our world in some way. In theory, if they're employed, that should be positive. They're contributing either economically, culturally, socially, whether they're contributing a lot economically because they're a truck driver and they make $165,000 a year and they spend that money and they own a house and or they're just a community organizer and they make $30,000 a year. But because they have that job, they're working to improve the community in which they live in. And like, maybe those jobs can't be taken by AI, but they need more support by the government because more people need to be employed in those types of positions that don't necessarily contribute to the economy, but contribute to the social fabric and to the culture. And we have to create the universal programs that make it so that their low wages that would then be subsidized by the government don't impact their ability to receive healthcare treatment, to have access to clean air, clean water, healthy food, a safe environment, etc. So those are my thoughts on the future of America. Shout out to whoever's finna be the president tomorrow. Or maybe not shout out to them if it's not who I want it to be. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the movie Conclave. And I think the movie Conclave is actually really interesting to come out at this time. I'm sure that they plan for it to come out this time because of the content. So basically the movie Conclave is about the Catholic Church and the Pope. So when the Pope dies, the next Pope, if you're not familiar, I'm not that familiar with Catholicism, but my grandma's Catholic and my mom was raised Catholic, which I should do a whole other video on that, on like, what does it mean to be Catholic adjacent? Because for the longest time, I never really understood how that was impacting my life. Then when I moved to New York and I started to meet Jewish people who were not Jewish, well, they were Jewish, I guess you would say ethnically or culturally, but they were not Jewish practicing the religion. And there's this phrase, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know if it would actually be appropriate for me to say this. But basically, people say that, like, if you're Jewish, whether you practice a religion or not, like, you are Jewish, like, that's it. And I feel like with Catholics, with Irish Catholics, they kind of say the same thing. Like, you're an Irish Catholic, like, you could decide you want to be Protestant tomorrow, like, you're still Irish Catholic. I don't feel like I'm Catholic, but as I've gotten older and I've learned more about Catholicism, I see how the culture of Catholicism was so deeply ingrained into, like, my mom's side of the family, and how not being raised in it was actually almost a disservice because so many things I didn't understand. Like, on one hand, it was a benefit because I would not have chosen that for myself because of scandals and conflicts that I'm sure you're well aware of with the Catholic Church. It's not a life that I would have chosen for myself, and it's not something that I saw as aspirational amongst my peer group because there were people that I grew up with that were Catholic. But in a way, I wish that I could have been raised Catholic purely for the sake of having a better insight to my mother and how we could have had a better relationship, because she was raised Catholic. And even though she converted when she married my dad, who was, I guess you would say, a Protestant, she converted away from Catholicism when she married my dad. If I had been more knowledgeable and more aware, I would have understood her better, because she was still culturally Catholic in many, many, many ways. And the conclave made me think of all this. All that to say that, like, so the conclave, the Pope. The Pope is elected. There's an election. The election happens amongst the cardinals. So basically the Catholic Church is kind of like it's like a kingdom, basically. So, and it's feudalistic. So you have the king, who is, well, I guess technically the king of the Catholic Church is supposed to be Jesus Christ or God, but like the leader on earth is the Pope. Then beneath the leader, you have the cardinals, and the cardinals are the leaders of the different regions, right? So you might have a cardinal of the West Coast of America, and a cardinal of the East Coast of America, and a cardinal of Western Europe, and a cardinal of Southern Europe, right? So you have those by region, and then below them you have the bishops and the archbishops, all the way down to just the normal priests at the parish and the archdiocese, and it's all managed up. It's like a cult, an MLM, basically, right? That's the structure. When the Pope dies, the new Pope is chosen from those amongst the cardinal class by the cardinal class. So it's not the individual Catholics who vote for the new Pope, it's just the cardinals who choose. And they choose it in this ritual type of election called the conclave. And the conclave, the Vatican is locked down, all of the cardinals are there, and they keep voting until one person has the majority of the votes. So this movie is basically a foxhole film about this time. You have the main character is the guy who is basically like the main cardinal. So he's the cardinal who's at the Vatican. He like runs the whole cardinal program, and he's like the Pope's right-hand man. When the Pope dies, he's in charge of like doing the administrative running of the election, saying like, okay, we're going to start here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so basically the movie just follows as they go through this election process, like who starts out as a favorite, who gets scandalized, who doesn't get voted for. And I won't ruin it for you because it's kind of like a mystery, but it's a very interesting and very, very funny movie. It is so, so funny. It's like dry humor or like black humor. Like all of the jokes are played straight, but it will be like one of the cardinals says something crazy, and then it'll be like, do you want a coffee? And he like presses a button on an espresso machine, and it just looks so funny because you have this Nespresso machine in this ancient like basilica like setting. Like there's a fresco by Michelangelo behind him, and he's like pressing the pot on the Nespresso machine as he denies some heinous allegation that he did in Ohio or something. Like it's really interesting, and I really loved that movie. And I think honestly the Conclave and The Stranger, going back to what I was saying before, they're kind of interesting as like relational pieces, because they kind of talked about like the absurdity of faith, of believing in the future, of believing that action should have consequence, of the absurdity of believing in anything. Like you could even get into the halls of, in theory, should be some of the most faithful people on earth, right? Men who have dedicated their entire lives, sworn off family and like, you know, worldly living, and have risen to the ranks to actually become leaders in this particular faith. And then even behind closed doors, they're almost godless. They're almost more heinous than you could imagine. They're almost as wild as pagans in the street, you know, like they almost get down as nasty as anybody else. And they have just as much confusion about, is God real? What does God want from us? Why does he want it from us? What does he intend? What is he trying to make happen? What, like, if he is real, what is he, where is he, and why is he making these things happen, if he's making them happen at all? This movie sort of asks all of those questions in a really interesting way. And it kind of goes back to my last video when I was thinking about, you know, what is the purpose to believe in God? At least in this movie, I don't know, did they have one? I'm thinking about it now. I think that they found purpose for their lives in God. Like, God was the purpose. It didn't matter what God wanted for them. They decided that what they wanted was God. And that purpose or that calling had to exist in contest and in conversation with all of the things that like made them human. And that was a struggle for every single character in the movie, and the way that they were built and destroyed and built and destroyed and built and destroyed in the world of Charlie XCX, building myself up, breaking myself down, repeating it. It was so good. Okay, this video is getting kind of long, so I'll go quickly for the next part. So the last thing I want to talk about is mood boards. I'm a compulsive mood boarder, you guys know this, but lately I haven't felt that inspired to make one. I think that is actually related to my self-image situation, which is that making a mood board kind of requires a vision, and making a mood board requires a vision. It requires some sort of knowledge, at the very least, of what you want to happen, how you want things to be, how you want things to look. It takes a presence and a self-awareness and a self-effacing feeling that I don't really feel right now. And so I've been having really trouble doing it. Maybe once the election is over and I can feel certain about one thing, then that will help me to feel certain about other things, but I don't know. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was music favorites. So I did go to the Nilüfer concert that I talked about in my last video, and I like her new album more after hearing it live, but her as a performer was kind of just okay. Her stage show was very similar to the one that I saw in New York, and I thought that it would be bigger, stronger, like more lights, more... I just thought the production value would be higher, but it wasn't. She just stood up there and sang the songs, which I guess, if I'm being honest, in an interview, she said, that's what I'm gonna do. She was like, people always ask me, oh, Nilüfer, how are you gonna perform this song? She's like, I'm gonna pick up my guitar and I'm gonna sing it. And that's exactly what the fuck she did. So that's my bad. But it was like fine. And then I went to a Kaytranada concert, which I didn't intend to go to, but it's, you know, it's so crazy. 2 years ago, I got invited to go to a Kaytranada concert by someone, and I couldn't go. And then the same situation happened to me. I got invited to a Kaytranada concert, and I was like, oh, this is just like last time that so-and-so invited me. Then I opened up my Instagram, and like the next day, and so-and-so was getting married. And I was like, oh my God, you were just on my mind. I was just thinking about you. I was just thinking about you. And now you're getting married. Good for you. Shout out to Kaytranada. He put on a good show. He had a huge production. But my thing with him was like, even though he had lights, he had smoke, the music was loud, we was in VIP, it was popping. I wanted a little bit more. I don't know. I felt like, I think this is getting to the end of his tour. I just felt like the energy wasn't right from him. I wanted more crowd interaction. I wanted him to maybe do more live stuff. It felt like a lot of stuff was just kind of pre-programmed, and he just had a basic two-set Pioneer. Like, I feel like with DJs, when I see them live, I want to see you do something really cool. Like, the best DJ I've seen live by far has been Flume, because he had like synths, and he had 2 stages, and he was running around, and he was bringing out singers, and like Kaytranada did that. Kaytranada did bring out a singer. Kygo also brought out singers, but I don't like felt a little one-dimensional, and I want to see something that feels alive in a way. And it's not just about having live instruments and live musicians, because like I saw Charlie, she didn't have that, but she felt alive. And it's not just about being alive, because I saw Nilüfer and she was just her, you know, but she was playing and she had all live instruments exclusively. She had a full band, but like even she felt a little flat. Like in a live performance, I just want to feel that energy, and maybe that just gets exhausting when you're touring and you're doing so many dates, but that's what I'm missing in my life. And I'm playing some shows soon, fingers crossed everything's gonna come together, and that's what I'm gonna try to bring. I'm gonna try to bring some aliveness to it, some vitality. Gretchen Parlato is a singer that I recently discovered. She was on my YouTube autoplay. She's like a jazz singer. I found her album from 2012, and I just think it's super beautiful. You guys should totally check it out. I'll link it down below. And then FKA Twigs. I've been listening to FKA Twigs recently. She's been promoting. I guess she got a new album coming out, and so her new singles have prompted me to go back and listen to LP1, and LP1 is so good. Like, LP1 is so good. It's as good as it was when I first listened to it 10 years ago. It's so beautiful and it's so innovative. And even now, people that are trying to do that sound that she did on LP1 are not doing it like she did it then. Even she, I mean, she's kind of doing something different now. I feel like her music is much brighter, much more optimistic. Obviously, she's been through stuff. She's acting like her mind and creative practice is somewhere different, but LP1 was just so singular, and it's so amazing for that to have been her first album and breakthrough record, because it's just truly fantastic. But anyway, that's all from me. I think I'm gonna take a walk. I've been inside the house all day. I'm gonna take a walk and just vibe. And I hope you guys are having a great night. And whenever you see this video, I hope that you're doing well. Okay, ciao, bye.